Yep.
So yeah. So anyway, but on the replay, and I get most of my views on the replay, not on the live.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that's how it always is.
Yeah, I know. Yep,
So,
I'm aware of that. But
oh yeah, oh yeah, and I think Kath should have the moderator should have your channels, so we
oh,
can throw them out there.
it's just our well, yeah, it's Armist Bates on TikTok and YouTube. So
Yep, 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 and
oh, here we
I
go.
don't see us live
I
yet.
see us live on my TV.
Hey, mine just came that we are live, live, live.
Live from New York and Wyoming.
That's right. Live from Wyoming and New York. It is Thursday afternoon.
To think of. Uh-oh.
And guess who I have on this side?
Who's on
I
that
have
side?
a gentleman by the name of Armist Bates.
Howdy.
Yeah. And so Armist, hi, how are you?
I'm great, Calamity. How are you?
I'm doing very well, very well. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
Well, everyone's probably wondering why I'm here, and so am I. It's a great Frank Zappa song.
We all have a story to share, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We do, absolutely. It's going to take a few minutes for the notifications to go out, and so we'll just, kind of keep it a
Sure.
little, a little light for the beginning. So, hey, Kath, Nikki News, hi, Jane, Sean, Jane, oh, Armis,
I haven't done that in a long time.
yeah, right, huh? So, Armist,
Yeah.
would you like us to call you Armist, or tell us who Armist Bates is?
Well, Armis Bates is a name I came up with for my band. It's a combination of my mom's name was Armist, and my grandmother, who I never met, she passed away 10 years before I was born. Her name was Hazel Bates, and she was a real mean grandmother, I guess. And it sound, it's so the two names, my mom and Hazel. I brought it together to Armist Bates. It had a ring to it, and
Nice.
I used to be back in the '80s when I had a band. I was called R-Wing. R-Wing and the Outpatients was my band, and
oh my gosh, we'll have to talk about that.
So I came up with the name Armist Bates quite a few years ago, and just never played out with it. And lately, since I retired, I have time to try to do something with my music career. And I have a couple of musician friends that we play around. Nothing serious yet, though. I'm more involved. I just got invited on my worship team at church because they found out I'm new to this church. Well, for like 3 months, and I was a worship leader for 15 years.
Okay.
They found out somehow God seems the way to tell people that. I didn't tell nobody. The pastor
It's
came
a way
up
of doing that.
So a pastor came up and asked me if I would, come and join their practice, and I said I would be glad to. So
nice. And so, but yeah, before we get to that, because we want to hear all about that, tell us a little bit about who is Armist Bates.
Wow, who is Armist Bates? Well, actually, we can tell my real name is Brian Franklin.
Brian Franklin.
Brian Evan Franklin.
You heard it here.
Brian Evan Franklin. Unless you talk to my sister who passed away, it was Brian Eva, because when I transferred to one school, they dropped the N in my middle name, so it said Brian Eva Franklin. And my sister never let it down. She's always called me Brian Eva.
Yeah, if I was your sister, I would have called you Eva the whole forever.
She always did.
Ever.
Never let it down. So Armist Bates sounds better than Brian Eva.
There you go. There you go.
But I'm a retired.
I had a cat named Hazel.
That's a great name. I like to remember the cartoon Hazel. or the comic
Right?
strip.
I remember the old TV show Hazel.
I think I do too.
You
Or I
have, I
think I'm
know you
older
have
than
to.
you.
Yeah, because you're senior to me.
I am
Yeah,
senior to you. I
yeah.
am.
So let me dig a little bit into who Brian is. Let's go back before we talk about Armist. Let's talk about Brian. Okay, Brian. So
Yeah.
where were you born? Where do you live? Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Rochester, New York in 1960.
Okay,
And I grew up in a little town north of Rochester on the shores of Lake Ontario called Charlotte. And it's spelled like
Charlotte.
Charlotte. But you don't pronounce, if you're from Charlotte, you don't pronounce the R.
So you know who's a tourist and who's not.
Yes, yeah. So,
Just
so I,
like that's exactly how it is up here. If you're not from around here, you call Jackson Jackson Hole,
yeah,
but its name is Jackson.
yep, yep.
Yeah. I'm
So,
sorry, go ahead.
so I lived in a little town of Charlotte, New York, for to the mid '60s, and my family split up, and then my life got kind of chaotic. I spent from 8 till 12 in foster homes, which was quite an experience. And then I
Mhm.
went back with my dad. My mom, Armist, was a little crazy, and she was unfortunately locked up into Willard State Asylum for the criminally insane.
Oh,
For
so she really had a lot of mental illness, huh?
Yeah, yep. I mean, yeah, she did. And so I kind of lost contact with my mom till I was 18 years old. And I happened to meet my mom. It's so strange. I was walking in downtown Rochester and seeing this woman pulling a cart, and I was like, boy, that looks like my mom. And I hadn't seen her since I was 8. And I was 18 at the time. So it was 10 years.
Mhm.
And it was my mom. I walked, it was so crazy to, like, you know, we lost contact. I was in the system, being in foster homes and that, and somehow
Like,
they never put us back together.
can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, in your little bio that you sent me, whoops, in your bio that you sent me, you said that you were really abused in the foster system.
I was.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
At one point, it was on. I used to think this was in my imagination, but I was held at gunpoint by one of the foster fathers who didn't want to let me and my sister go. And it was a standoff for about 8 hours. And being that young, I was 8, 9 at the time, and I used to think as a teenager, man, was that real or was it fake? And in my mid 20s, I was a commercial cook for some time, and I had met this kid, and he had the same last name of the detective that was there. I remembered the name, and I asked him, and he said, "That's my father's favorite story about how he negotiated the release of this 8-year-old boy at gunpoint." And well, it just confirmed it. Wow, I'm not crazy, But
Wait
stuff
a
like,
minute. So, how much time had passed since this incident happened?
well, I was 8 around when it happened, and I was in my mid 20s, when I found out that
Wow.
this kid verified it, and I knew it. The officer's name was Jason Seaback, and it's just crazy. That's just one of the stories. I mean, I bounced around different foster homes because
What was that like?
it was terrible for me because I was like a mama's boy, so I didn't want no part. I was just planning on running away any chance, and I had trouble in school because I didn't want to be in school. I just wanted my mom. And
What kind of
so,
troubles did you have in
well,
school?
I just didn't want to be there, so I just wouldn't. I just didn't. I just didn't want to do nothing. I was pretty much a little brat. Like
Yeah.
it was traumatic. This is in the 1960s, and
Yes.
1968. So it was a different world then, and it's just we never really found. My sister finally found a foster home where she fit in, and people took care of her. And I got out. My dad took me out when I was 12, and I lived with him for a while. But at 15, I couldn't handle, with stepmom and all that. We always were at odds, so I ran away from home. and
Mhm.
lived on the streets for no one in my family saw me from 15 till 19. I lived on the streets of Rochester doing just things you can imagine. I mean, I was never a criminal. I stole food, you know,
Is that
sometimes.
because you were hungry?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I
Okay.
wasn't. I'd never been in trouble. All through that, and I was
You're kidding.
fortunate. No, I mean, there were some really cool street people that young people like me. There was like a group of us in the town of Rochester that we lived in the subway sometime, and we'd stay at people's houses. And
Wait a minute, wait a minute. You're going a little fast for me.
I
So you lived in a subway as a minor.
I was 15. Yeah,
Tell me about that.
it was just life. I mean, it was a better. It was I felt free. And I, I had met some people just before I ran away. They sent me to because I was telling you about trouble in school. They sent me to it was called Threshold Learning Center. It was for troubled youth.
Okay.
And I met a lot of other troubled youths, which probably wasn't a good idea because we all just we were like
Hmm.
a good friends. But I still have good friends with a lot of these people. That
Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, and we they helped me run away, and of course it wasn't great living in. I didn't stay in the subway all the time. It was just sometimes I knew that was a place where you could stay. And
Was it dangerous?
nah, not really. The subway then wasn't. It was underneath the Gannett newspaper, and they had cars under there, train cars that would once just move in between. They'd store stuff, but the subway itself was closed for years. And
How many people do you think lived
it was
down there with you? Can
oh
you?
all 7, 8. There was this older guys. This one guy, a friend of mine, he had passed. He was sleeping on the steam tunnel, and he fell off it into the Genesee River and drowned. It was, um, yeah, there was just a group of us, and like I said, there was older folks, and we kind of stayed away from them. There was a couple cool guys, and it was a whole different. It was the 70s, the early 70s. So
Yeah.
it really wasn't that dangerous. Really, there wasn't a lot of
Freedom,
crime.
love, peace, and freedom.
Yeah, I finally got a job when I was 16 for a painting company. This
Hmm.
guy paid me under the table $10 an hour. That was 1976. It was really good money, and
That's huge money then.
it was very good. I had a nice apartment then. But I was able to buy my guitars and start my music career kind of then, and things kind of went up from then. You
So
know.
I asked this whoops, I asked this question to everybody. What were you like in high school?
Well, I really didn't go to high school because I was, like I said, I never went to school. They sent me to. It wasn't a reform school. It was a school for troubled youth, and there was no grades there. They were what they were trying to do is get me to get my GED. And I never got that. I was well liked there. I had a lot of friends there, and,
Yeah.
and
Did
school.
you ever feel like you had a home? Did you ever feel at home somewhere that you felt like you could just
No,
belong and kind of like, for lack of a better word, let your hair down?
no, not till I was almost 17. Yeah.
And were you scared to do that the first time?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a
Talk about
complete
that a little bit.
different change.
Talk
you know,
about that a little bit.
well, I was kind of like a mama's boy, like I said, and it was a whole new world of being alone, having a few friends, being super poor, and trying to do whatever we could to make money or get food, and we were
Hmm.
just kind of lost. We had no vision of anything. We just we drank. We were underage, but you could always find somebody to get you booze. And it was just.
Did you end up with an alcohol problem when you were young?
Well, I don't think it was a problem. I mean, I drank, and I mean, I wasn't drinking every day. As I got when I was an adult, I had an alcohol problem.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Well, we haven't gotten there
yeah,
yet.
yeah,
We're
we're
still
still down there in the
we're
70s. Yeah,
still 17 and below.
but like I said, once I got the job at the painting, and I met a whole different type of people. I still were friends with all these street kids, and gosh, I don't know, life had turned around pretty good there. My girlfriend at the time, when she was my fiance, she was 15, living on the streets with me, and
Wait a minute. 15 and she was your fiance.
well, she was when she passed away,
Mhm.
at when in 1979. But
Mhm.
we had been together for 3 years, and I was in love with her. She was in love with me, and I by then I was working. I bought her a ring, and then
Mhm. Was
one
she the
night,
love of your life?
I think so. She might have been my soulmate since I've been married 4 times. We haven't got there yet either.
You haven't gotten there yet.
But um, yeah, that's part of. I mean, she was my best friend, and
Mm.
one night she went out with her girlfriends, and she didn't come back, and it was late, and I was upset. Out there, I was drinking then, throwing my beer bottles in the street, smashing them, and about 5:30 in the morning, the police came, and I figured they were coming because I was throwing beer bottles in the street, and they actually was coming to have me identify her body because she was killed in a car wreck.
Holy Moses.
Um, that was
How was that? How'd that affect you?
it like destroyed my life. I had a 1969 Camaro,
Mhm.
beautiful street rod, and I opened the hood and beat the engine apart with a 50-pound sledgehammer and sold it for $50. And the car was worth, well, I don't know what it'd be worth today. It was worth quite a bit of money back then. So I kind of lost it.
Yeah. Of course. Of
And
course. And so I can imagine with the combination of everything that had happened to you from when you were very young until up to 1979.
yeah,
So you were 19 then.
well, I was 18 when it happened. It was in August,
Hmm.
August 18th. It's coming up on the anniversary.
Does
Uh,
that still affect you today?
yeah, and not.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. I'm older now, so things don't. Even like my mom, I kind of my mom died in Halloween, so she's like my personal ghost. So it bothered me then, but no, it still always does. She
Hmm.
was my first love, and
Yeah.
she's got my guitar pick in her hand in her coffin.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry for that loss, Armist.
Like I said, it
I
was
understand loss.
many years ago. So
Yeah. I understand loss, and I just want to let you know that I'm very sorry.
uh,
Well, we'll move on from there. Okay. So let's go to 1980.
1980 was
Yeah, let's start 1980. First, while you're thinking about that, I'd like to say hello to our lurkers.
oh yeah,
And for those hanging out in the lurkers lounge, we have a nice cozy lounge.
can you see
Please,
that? Can you see that?
yes, you
That's
look like Eddie
that.
Van
Well, that is Eddie
Halen.
Van Halen, and that's my fiance.
Oh my gosh!
That is Eddie Van Halen. Yes, I
Wait.
met. Well, see, right before that, that's when I told you I started becoming a musician, and a couple of my best friends were two French Canadian groupies. So I got to meet. That's how I met a lot of my bands that I know.
Okay.
And so I hung around with Well, I actually hung around with David Lee Roth. Hung around with us for hours and hours partying. But that
Well,
picture
let's
was
get to
taken.
that. Let's get to that. So 1980. What happened? Your girlfriend had just passed away. Your life was shattered. You were trying to pick up the pieces and still figure out what the heck is going on.
Well, then punk
And so
music.
you didn't have a steady ground
No,
to a steady foundation. So
no.
go from there.
Um, I went through it real dark. I wore black all the time. I was
Mhm.
always, you always see me walking around. I always had a guitar slung over my shoulder. Never had a case. Would always be walking around with that. And I had bracelets. I was dressed like a punk. I was. I played guitar you know, I like bands like Nazareth and Black Sabbath, and so that's what I was playing. But new wave and punk came in. It was such a great change, and that brought a whole new kind of life into me because it was such an easy thing to play. And I hung around with a lot of the local punk and new wave bands, and life started to go up really good there. I got back into, you know, doing stupid things with cars. I ended up wrecking a car in '83 and was just about killed. It's on my. If you go to my YouTube channel, it says the wreck of '83. There's actual pictures from me still in the car, and they got the jaws of life, and
Yeah, I've
you
seen it.
know. Yeah, that
Mhm.
pretty much that kind of ended my music career. I broke both my shoulders, fractured my skull, had a brain hemorrhage, tore my right eardrum. I was in a coma. I woke up like wrapped up like a mummy. It was terrible, and they
Oh,
couldn't give me anything for pain because of the brain injury. And I'm telling you, I was in excruciating pain. And so I left the hospital against doctor's advice, and I pretty much I laid at home in bed for almost 6 months.
yeah,
And I had a girl. I'm jumping all over the place. I had a girlfriend then who took care of me. She ended up becoming my first wife, and
yeah.
you know, but I don't know, things settled down for a bit, and like I said, that kind of stopped my guitar playing. Not that I was anything, I just bounced around with a lot of the local bands and did a lot of roadie work, did some light work, I mean, doing the lights and the sound at some clubs. And I think I told you my cousin owned the biggest nightclub in Rochester, the Rock and Roll nightclub. And so I'd spent a lot of time there, hanging out with her, meeting bands. I hung around with Robin Trower. I don't know if you know who Robin Trower is, and for
Mhm.
like hours, and I actually tuned his guitar for him and stuff. It was so.
Well, so let's slow down just a little bit because you do have such an amazing past that I don't want to miss any of it.
Yeah, I get a little off the track.
No, no, that's okay. That's okay. So, hi, Aquamarine. You were in YouTube jail. I'm sorry. Oh, I love you, honey. So now, how did you get? Um, you had you went through a very dark time. You were carrying your six string on your back, and you were just trying to find out who you were.
Yeah.
And then you turned a corner and you decided that's who I am. So go from there.
Well,
How did that happen?
wow, I don't even know if it, that's a tough question. I don't know if I don't think I've turned the corner yet.
Okay.
My life changed. Once I healed from the car accident. At the time, I was um, doing siding and roofing, so I was doing that for a few
Mhm.
years, and I would cook in the wintertime because living in New York, siding and roofing. Well, we used to
Yeah.
do it a lot, but see, the jobs weren't
No.
always there. So
Yeah.
that's how I got my foot in the door to become a chef. And I never went to chef, school, but
How old?
trained. I started cooking it went before my fiance actually died in like '78 because we painted too. And then I got a job at Jimmy Catuzzi's Southtown Plaza restaurant as doing dishes and prepping,
Hmm.
and then I became a commercial cook. And then right around the same time in '83, '84, I started working at this one place called the Barefoot Mailman, and and I never learned the history of that until just recently. I learned the whole history about how it's a Florida thing, and wow. But anyways, I learned a lot of prep there from um, Tonto's niece. You know Tonto, like Kimo Sabi.
Hmm.
She was the head cook at the Barefoot Mailman, and I learned a lot from her. And then I ended up taking over. They own two restaurants. My bosses then, and another place was called My Office, and I became the head cook there and cooked there for quite a few years. And
So, so, I'm just a little confused, and it might be just me.
It's
Um,
probably me.
no, 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 it's probably me. So I win. Um,
All right.
um, so you're young, you decide that music is your gig,
Yeah.
and but you also have a love of cooking.
I don't know if it was
Or
a
was that kind of a survival thing?
well, it was kind of well, it was started out a survival thing, and then I kind of fell into it more than doing like roofing and siding and all that. And so I just stayed pretty much as a cook
Mhm.
for for most of my career. I ended up going to a this is really jumping it's jumping my head, but I worked at one of Rochester's best Italian restaurants under two very good Sicilian chefs, and I learned like everything from them. Really, I'm really famous. Well, I was famous for my soups, and I learned it from them how to do. And these guys were great. I didn't consider myself a chef until just a couple years ago when I figured out these guys. We used to do chicken French. I don't know if you ever heard it, but it's like chicken francesi. It's
Okay.
it, it's basically the same thing, but Rochester took it and called it chicken French. But
Okay.
but instead of pounding the chicken breast, they would feather it. And I'd watch these guys for 5 years, and they would never share how they do it. It was amazing. I watched. They would just take chicken breasts and they'd talk to each other and they'd not even look, and they would feather a chicken breast to about the size of a plate. I'm
Oh,
not kidding
wow.
you. And I could never figure out how they did it just until actually when I retired. I finally figured out how to properly feather a chicken breast. So that's when I considered myself a chef.
So did you go to culinary school?
No, I never did, but and I used to ask chefs, how can, because the businesses I worked for called me a chef, and I was like, well, I didn't go. But as long as you create the menu, do all the ordering, and
Yeah.
do the cooking, then you're a chef. And that's what I
Yep.
did. I did
Mhm.
the past 20 years, I was in healthcare. I left the restaurant because I had a friend of mine was in a nursing home, and I just looked at the food and I was like, this is terrible. And so I got my foot in the door, and the second biggest employer in Rochester was Rochester Regional Health. So I took over the kitchen in one of their facilities, and that's where I, my soups. Everyone just couldn't believe I had a woman that came from 40 miles. Once a month, I made Italian wedding soup, and she just said she's been all over the world, and no one makes Italian wedding soup as good as I did. So, you know,
Dawn Braddock just said her Italian name is Marini. Yeah.
Marie,
Marini. Is that what it is, Dawn? Is that what you said? Mm. Okay, so let's
Marie,
go. Let's go back to
jumping
the
around.
early 80s. Early 80s. You had a colorful time during that time, didn't you?
Well, yeah, it was like party time. I met a lot of the bands like just before my fiance died. I was hanging with, you know, Eddie Van Halen and them, and I've met tons of bands, at due to the nightclub and did a lot of partying in the local. There was a club called Scorgies. It wasn't my cousin's. My cousin's place was a rock and roll, hard rock, and this was new wave and punk. And I just fell into there and met a lot of great friends and musicians. I was
Mhm.
there. Elvis Costello came in there one night. He's just done a concert in Rochester, and he
Yeah.
came in there all, being a Cockney Englishman, and Don Scorgia, the owner, didn't take too kindly of him and grabbed him right by his shoulders and pushed him out the door through him and his entourage. Right. And it was like something you never see, someone throwing Elvis Costello out, and Elvis wasn't too happy about it. And
I bet
and it
he
was
wasn't.
funny. A group of us then left the bar and went to another small club in Rochester, and somehow Elvis Costello showed up there, and he was
Mhm.
the typical. He'd sign people's autographs on a napkin, ripping them on purpose. He was just being I kind of liked it. It didn't bother me because he was a punk. If you're a punk,
Yeah.
you should act like a punk. And
Thank you, Sean, for that gifted membership. Thank you. So, so let's talk a little bit about the Go-Go's.
well, they happened to become they were playing at Scorgies at the time. We got all the national acts back then, and plus the Go-Go's were new then. They came
And there
into
might be
town.
some people in the chat who don't know who the Go-Go's are. So
We got the beat. You ever heard that song? We got
we
the
got
beat.
the beat. We got the beat.
Where's your
Yeah.
mic? Where's your mic?
Yeah, I got them both right over there.
Anyways, well, they happened to be they happened to come to town and played the club, and they were California girls, not knowing. And my friend Joff was working in the kitchen. He was the leader of the band, the Bowery Boys, and somehow Belinda Carlisle wanted to hang out and go party, and so we kind of took her under our wing and went to a few of the local, because there was always after hours parties, that we went to, and we just hung around with her talking. I mean, nothing romantically at all
Mm-hmm.
happened. It's kind of cool to hand it, but no, we were just, her escorts, and she was a great woman. We had a great
Mm-hmm.
time with them, and the Go-Go's were great. They put on an awesome show.
Did you ever get to spend more time with them, or?
Nope, just that night we hung around. Just that night for about 8-10 hours, all night really,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
we're just talking. It was just the typical '80s party. People
Mm-hmm.
over there doing whatever, us doing whatever.
So, so spill the tea on what was going on in the entertainment business at that time,
Oh,
because there's a lot going on in it now.
it was a big time. It was cocaine was like the big thing. There was a lot of cocaine used from everybody, and that was the big thing. It was the '80s. The '80s was like, and that was just real prevalent everywhere. That all the local scenes, and I never got into it much because like just who'd want to get all like grit your teeth, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't my deal. But the '80s. Other than that, though, it was a great party time. That it was probably the best time for music if you like new wave music, and it was great. I used to get in there. I was dance. I could dance up a storm back then. I was always, if I
Me
wasn't
too.
playing, I was dancing or doing the lights or helping with the sound and roadieing. I tried
Mm-hmm.
to stay involved with the music because, like I said, after I got in the wreck, it pretty much wrecked my arm, and my arm's pretty messed up still. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just, you know, ended up hanging around, meeting a lot of bands just through the clubs and different people. One of my best friends, she'd probably get mad. Hopefully, she's not watching. She was pregnant with Ozzy's son, and
Oh.
she fell down the stairs and had a miscarriage. It was like, yeah. Well, we met a lot of big acts. A lot of big acts came to my cousin's bar, and like I said, my two friends were groupies, and they were beautiful French Canadians, 6 feet tall, and if you hung around with them, you pretty much got to meet. I met Angus Young. I had pictures of Angus Young sitting in his tighty whities. You know, we used to just, it was a crazy scene, fun,
Mm-hmm.
crazy fun,
Do you think that the 80s were more intense that they maybe are now?
intense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think so. It was a whole different scene. It was better music. There's some great acts today. Music's pretty much all electronics now. You don't even really have to be a musician.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, to make it, a lot of these acts it's all electronics, which is sad.
We have somebody who's one of part of the FOD, and he does stuff with the entertainment business, and he told me kind of the same thing. He said that he could even make me sound good.
Oh yeah, but you do sound good.
Nah, no, no, I just
But
love it and I don't care.
well, that's you should. You
Yeah.
got there's an old Cat Stevens song about that. Oh, I can't. You ever see the movie Harold and Maude?
Yes, I did.
It's like I just watched it actually last night. And what a great soundtrack! And
Mhm.
Why I brought
So
that.
so Armist, let's move into the mid '80s now. What's going on in the mid '80s with you from 1985 on?
That's when I first got married. I got married in '85 to my first wife. I was kind of settling. I kind of settled down. I actually played. I started playing lead guitar on a 12 string, playing country music for about 3 years with one of my good buddies. Who I never really. I mean, I had nothing against country music, but he always uh, he always played it, and his dad and mom like fake adopted me. They had a big party one time, and they invited me to it, and they had an adoption for me. So I was kind of obligated to play the country music then, which
Uh,
it was kind
Did
of fun. It taught me a whole different, and we played like old school Texas country, not like you know today's country is kind of strange to me. It's I
yeah.
don't know, but we played Hank Williams, Merle Haggard,
Oh
Willie
yeah.
Nelson. There's
Mhm.
me up there playing lead guitar on a 12 string acoustic.
So, real quick, I want to ask you about. So, when they had that adoption party for you, you're still talking about it. How many years later?
It was
35
when I,
years later.
yeah, yep,
So, maybe even 40.
yeah,
Um,
gosh.
and so that had quite an impact on you, even though you may not have realized it. Yeah. No.
Oh yeah, it kind of ushered me into the way of like playing worship music too. It was a whole, because worship, well, that's we can get into that after. But once I got into doing worship music, I did like the acoustic worship and then electric. I had a couple. Um, it was late '80s, early '90s when I had a couple of kind of alternative rock Christian band. My band was Anointed Dust, and I had another band called Fear Not.
Hmm.
And I'm jumping all over the place again.
Well, that's okay. I can bring you back because we'll get into that. So we're in the 1985. We're around 1985.
It was
87. That era.
not a lot. It was a quiet time. Like I said, it was my first marriage. You
Were
know, I,
you were you still doing drugs?
I never really was big in I didn't really do a lot of, like I wasn't really into cocaine
Oh, okay.
and pot. Every time I smoked pot, I thought I was dying. My wife had laughed at me. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. Like, yeah, get out of it. But I drank. That was my thing. I drank.
That was your
I
thing.
wasn't drinking I would drink beer well, actually, in the '80s, I was just talking to a friend of mine. My best friend is 80-year-old. My best friend. And anyways, I was telling her about how I got that was in the '85 to like almost '90. I was into red wine. I was a wine connoisseur, and that's all I drank was red wine and
Mhm.
expensive red.
Bye, Anne.
Um, so
Yeah.
that was
So go
kind of
on.
I was kind of my mellow time when I was mellowing out, and I think
Okay.
trying to conform to society. You know,
Hmm.
uh,
How did you have any children?
I have a daughter. Yep, she's
Okay.
she's with my second wife. We're not there.
Okay. Yeah, we're not there yet.
We're
Okay.
almost there.
Yeah. Okay. So then, what happened with you and your first wife?
Well, things happen. I don't want to. That's
Okay.
oh,
That's
well,
it.
it's like,
Things happen.
yeah, things happen.
Yep.
And
You
it's
got
things,
divorced.
we got divorced. Yep.
That's it. We'll leave it there.
And that's how then because I was a guitar player, my second wife, her brother was dating my sister who called me Brian Eva. And she was like, "Oh, my brother plays guitar," and her boyfriend, who ended up being my brother-in-law, eventually was like, "Oh, my sister plays guitar," and so they brought her over to my house, and she was a 17-year-old girl, and I was 32. And I had no interest, at all of like that. And actually, when she started playing guitar, I was like, I don't know how to play guitar. I don't know because I'd never seen a guy. She could outplay Eddie Van Halen. I'm not kidding you. So she, I wish I should talk to her and see if she'd let me like put some of her music up on up on my channel because she was like just she played heavy metal, but she could play 23 notes in 1 second. She was just a speed demon up and down the neck, and
Wow, she was a Jimi Hendrix, huh?
oh, she was like, yeah, she was amazing, still is amazing. But things happen, and then when she turned 18, and one day, like all my brothers were always trying to hit on her because I wasn't hitting on her. I was like, she's a kid, and then things happen. And then next thing you know, she's pregnant and we're married. No. And that's for my
Oh,
daughter.
oh, 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 oh,
She was actually she graduated in high school on her due date.
oh, wow.
Okay, look, we
Oh,
lost a whole bunch of viewers now. um,
that's so funny.
yep, I was a cradle robber, but she,
So, okay, so you guys had a rendezvous,
yep,
and you have a daughter.
yeah, I have a daughter. Yep, my beautiful daughter, who she might be. I know she's in England now. She's supposed to be. Her new love of her life lives in London, so she's on her way to England and Scotland to spend some
Okay.
time with them. And yep, I have a wonderful daughter.
Can
And
she play a riff on the guitar too?
you know, she doesn't play. Gave her a beautiful guitar once, and she gave it to somebody else. And it was funny because both her parents were guitar players. It was funny. That's her mom, my second wife. She's the one who brought me to the Lord and brought me into the music ministry. And my daughter was funny. She was a toddler, and she'd be standing at church, and she knew like 60 praise and worship songs more than anything else. Because you know
Hmm.
what a special kid she is.
Oh,
And
so now I know that the Jesus movement, was going on, and
yeah,
as a matter of fact, I'll tell you a little something real quick. Um, have you ever heard of Pastor Chuck Smith from Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa?
I have.
Okay, well, he baptized me.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he baptized me. And I lived down the street from there, and I used to sit on the floor and listen to him preach.
That's
That's what.
that's
So, yeah. And but uh so now, is this when you started changing your life and you allowed the Lord into your life, or what
pretty
happened?
yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Mhm.
She dragged me to church. Well, not dragged me. She dragged me to a Bible study, and I was like, "Well, really? Well, I'm not going to take my leather jacket off or my hat."
Oh, wait a minute, something happened. You disappeared. You were going to take off your hat, and there
What
he is. He's
happened?
back. Okay.
All right.
So, you weren't going to take off your leather jacket or your hat.
Nope, I
And at the
wasn't.
same time, I had a bug fly up my nose.
I don't. I don't see me moving. If you can see me, that's fine. I can see you.
I see you frozen, but
Yeah.
it should unfreeze.
Okay. Well, as long as you can hear me, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, we got a good picture.
So what was I saying? Oh, I was gonna take off my leather jacket and that, and then after going there a couple times, they had this awesome coffee. It was hazelnut coffee. I never had such a thing. It's like, what is this hazelnut coffee? I'll come back for more Bible study if they have that. So that kind of brought me the hazelnut coffee and all that, and them saying you can leave your leather jacket and your hat on. That's okay. Jesus is okay with that. Later on in my teachings, though, see, I was at a Rhema church. I don't know if you know who Brother Hagen is or Kenneth E.
Yeah, I've
Hagen.
heard of him.
Well, he's old school. Like I went to a couple of their churches with a hat on, and I was like, "You better take your hat off, son."
Oh yeah.
So I take my hat off normally now. Just
Hmm.
out of reverence for the Lord.
Sure.
But
Sure.
yeah, I got saved then at 33 and started. That same week, the worship leader came up and poked me in the arm and said, "You play guitar. Bring your guitar to church Wednesday." I'm like, "Who told her I play guitar?" Another one. It was the first time that happened to me. It's like, who's this woman and who told her I play guitar? And actually, this is that same guitar. I've had this guitar for so many years, 40 something years.
So
Like,
would you say that from a young age, from everything that you experienced, as an 8-year-old little boy, would you say that somebody was praying for you?
oh, absolutely.
Who do you attribute that to, do you think?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, maybe you can ponder that for, a few
I
days and
should. You know what's funny? I'm
think
gonna
about.
tell you that car wreck I was in, the one I rolled, the video. There's a police officer standing there, and when I became the woman who tapped me on the shoulder and said, you play guitar." Her husband, he was actually became my pastor. He was the police officer at that scene. That was like 15 years prior, and and she said he must have been praying for you then. How strange is that? I was like, is this Pastor Bob? And sure enough, it was my pastor. And
Wow.
and he was at that time he was a sergeant in the internal affairs of the Rochester Police Department, and he had a big picture of the car wreck on his wall. And it was kind of a testimony that he must have been there praying for me then, and
Mhm.
somehow then I became his worship leader.
Wow. It's amazing to see that, because just from the small little conversation that we're having right now, yourself, myself, and everybody else, um, I think everybody can kind of see God's hand on you from when you were a little boy.
Yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, now let's go into the 90s.
The 90s. Wow. Trying to think. I can't remember the 90s. What was the 90s?
I know, that's how I feel about the last 10 years.
Wow. I'm trying to think. What did I do? And then well, 90, that was the 93 was when I was saved. I have my Bible. It was March 23rd, 1993 when I was saved.
Mm.
I still have the tissue that I wipe my tears on. It's
No
in that Bible.
kidding. So
Yeah.
that really affected you and rocked your world.
Yeah, big time.
Wow. Have you ever wavered?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For the last 15 years almost, that same pastor and I, the church. Well, we can get up there. That was 15 years ago. Was you know the church dissolved. I didn't know that there were some kind of problems that they were having, and I was having problems with that wife at that time, my third wife, and
Wait, we haven't gotten to her.
well, that's okay. She's my least favorite. I hope she's not watching. No, no, just kidding. That's a terrible thing to say. I keep
Okay,
playing.
so we'll just skip over wife number 3. Yeah.
Oh boy.
And wish her well. And
Yes,
wish
we
her
do.
well.
Always wish her well. Yeah.
So you have wavered.
Yeah, I kind of. Well, there were some things like I had stepchildren with my third wife, and one of them he had heavy drug problems, intravenous drug problems, heroin, and that. And when we were going through our divorce and stuff, my ex-wife had found his works, his heroin stuff, and blamed it on me and told our pastors. And I'm like, and my pastor, they knew me. We were really close friends, and
Yeah.
one of them was an RN, a nurse. Like, how could you possibly think I work 2 jobs, I take her, and I'm a heroin addict? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
how do you can tell, So I got really offended and kind of just
Mhm.
walked away from church. I never really walked away from God, but it really is what you do. I mean, when you walk away from the church, you kind of, everyone justifies their sin, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I walked away, and then just until recently, I just started going back to church in April.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
so
So now, bye, Mockingjay. We'll see you later, sweetheart. So, um, after wife number 3, well, okay, what are you doing now as a career?
I was that's when I was a chef in the nursing home.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And how long were you there for?
And then I was there. I left in 2000. So I worked there for over 10 years. I have a pension. I was there long enough to get a pension.
There
so
you go. There you
so
go.
and I
So,
left, on good terms. I'm hoping some of the nutritionists might be on here watching, but I was well
that
liked
would
by
be
everyone.
nice.
I was well liked. I was one of the people where they trusted me because when you work in a nursing home, when you got to there's a whole different set of rules and regulations, federal rules and state rules, and not
Mhm.
rule. I mean, just safety issues. And I had to know everyone's diet, and everyone knew me. I was like a celebrity there because I after I cooked everything, I had a daycare with like 30 adults. We had a cafe that was for everyone, and then I had three different units, about 120 residents. So I cooked everything for them. People used to like other employees. So what you got all those people? What do you mean you're to cook? I'm like, yeah, they don't do the cooking. Those other people are doing other things in the kitchen. I'm doing all the cooking. So, but I got real popular because I brought in fresh ideas and real food, and then I would go in, there was a main dining room, and they all loved me there. There was this one older woman, and she was a truck driver. She was a black woman. She was a truck driver, and she was a wonderful woman. And she, like, if she could have a chicken leg quarter every day with hot sauce, that's what she wanted. So I went and talked to the dietitians and said, why are we restricting some of these? They're in the end stages of their life, some of them.
Yeah.
Why can't they eat as long as it ain't? And so everything was approved. And this woman every day got her chicken leg. And it was like, everyone just, I just, really,
Sure.
I
Sure.
cared for all these people. I knew,
Mhm.
I probably knew 99% of everyone's first name there, which is
Mm.
like there's 120 residents and so
That's interesting that you say that because a lot of nursing homes or retirement homes, we should say,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
they kind of can get a pretty bad rap.
yeah, a lot of them do still. I mean, and even back then, but it depends on. Like I worked for Rochester Regional Health it was the second biggest employer in Rochester, so they own and they were very high standard, beautiful places. And
Hmm.
I left there with my current wife. I live in the little town of Canisteo, New York, the home of the living sign. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records, the largest living sign. It's written Canisteo. You can see it right out my
Nice.
window. But
Right on. So hey, Armis, I have a question for you.
yes,
Who was your favorite band?
that's tough. That's so tough. What's funny? I got to say, you'll never guess the B-52s. I
Rock
wanted to marry.
Lobster.
I wanted to
Down,
marry
down.
Cindy. I, I was in love with those two girls. Could sing, and they still can. They just celebrated their like 75th birthday, and I was in love with Cindy Wilson. She was one of the singers, and that's what wanted to marry Cindy Wilson. I was always in love with the B-52s.
Hmm.
But like I said, my roots are Nazareth, Jimi Hendrix, Judas Priest. I've met Rob Halford numerous times from Judas Priest, and I got some bad, funny. Well, I don't know some stories about him, but but it's just tough. What I was thinking about the other day because I thought you might ask me, and there's just so many. I love Robin Trower, but there's people like,
Hmm.
how can you love Robin Trower and you love the B-52s? It don't make sense, and that's kind of why I had like fights with the bands. I wanted to sing the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, turn that into a punk song, 'cause- and sing Frank Sinatra. I love Billie Holiday. So I just love all different types of music. But when it comes down to it, I always enjoyed the B-52s. It was like my type of music.
Okay. So new wave really was your gig when it turned from,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
was such
easy sounds of the 70s and,
yeah,
war music and all of that
new
to
new wave was so much fun and so easy for me to play, especially with my arm injury. It was fun, and dancing, and I had a great time during. That was my favorite when the new wave invasion came.
Mhm.
But I still love my roots. I still love Nazareth. Jimi Hendrix was always,
Oh
some of the first
yeah.
stuff I ever played was Jimi Hendrix and Robin Trower. So I had a blues kind of base to the what I was playing, but the B-52s have to be my all-time favorite. Fun, just there's nothing wrong with them. It's just a fun. Actually, the
Mhm.
guitar player, he was the drummer, but Cindy Wilson's brother, he died of AIDS back then in the '80s, and um, they actually like a couple of my videos on TikTok. I was like, oh, it's like how it's a one video of me playing the drums with my nose.
you know
I was so impressed. Like the guitar player from the B-52s actually likes my video. You know.
it is kind of funny who um when you find out, somebody who is a little bit, kind of big on the spectrum, I guess you'd say. I don't know how to say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, I have when I found out about one of my subscribers, um, I was like, no way, and yeah, way. I was like, no, yeah, oh
Yeah.
wow, okay,
Oh, yep.
yeah, and so, but he goes under a different name. Yeah, definitely goes under a different name. So, how at what age did music start influencing you?
When I was in the foster homes young, I mean, that was kind of the only releases when this one girl, we were in the one foster home for a while. Her name was Valerie Bowl. She used to have a radio and she would play stuff, and music was always. And my mom, I always remember her singing like "Love Is Blue" and "Hey little girl with your hair up in rollers." I always wanted to do
Mhm,
that song too. Like you can't sing Jack Jones. You're in a punk band. What's wrong with you? But music, like from it, I just remember, it's always being in love with music.
mhm.
My first guitar that I bought, a nice one, was a Fender Mustang,
Oh,
1965 Fender Mustang, and it was stolen from my mother's apartment shortly before she died. Uh,
oh, so sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
I used to live by the Fender Museum in Corona, California.
wow.
Yeah. But why do you think music made such an impression on you and it has almost in a way directed your life?
I think there's just freedom in it. There was the freedom that I didn't have, when as a youth, it was that release. Like when you asked me if there was ever a place when I was living in the subway where I felt at home, and that it was always music. And next to the subway was the Rochester War Memorial where all the bands played too. So I got to go in there a lot and meet all the bands, and it was something
Mhm.
I could identify and I could do. I could feel it in my spirit, and
Mhm.
for the last few years that when I was a worship leader, I led playing the bass, and I couldn't play the bass. Being a guitar player, I always looked at bass players as like you're a second class. Get out of here, you bass player. Go hang with the drummer, But then I started playing
A
bass,
boom
like,
boom.
whoa, it's like, whoa, this is a whole new animal, and I have a
Mhm.
deep respect. And some of my favorite, Juna Sarita, she's like got to be the best bass player in the world today, and I have a deep respect for bass player. I have a couple of bass. This is my worship
I
bass that
can't
I have.
see you because you're still frozen.
Well, why?
I don't know.
Does
I can
everyone
hardly
else?
talk with the frozen people.
Well, That's not fair. I don't understand what. Wait a minute.
I know. You know what? You can go out and then come back in.
Let me do that.
Okay. Hey, Cece, how you doing? Let's see who's all in here. Shiloh, hi. Good to see you. And Josh, how's Josh doing? How are you feeling, Josh? You know, I was thinking about you earlier today. Jane, hi, sweetie. Oh, here he is. Okay, let's see. There, we did it.
Yay!
Okay, you were going to show us your bass
Oh,
guitar.
this was my worship bass that I played for. I had a dream. The Lord told me to go buy a purple bass. And everyone's like, "Oh, a Barney bass." And this was a. I happened to be walking through a music store. It was a piano store, and this was wow about 40 years ago when I bought that. And I walked in and I was like, "Do you have any purple basses?" "No, but we can order you one." So I had that specially made. It's a Samick bass, which wasn't well known that back then, but I paid almost $1,000 having it made back then. And but I used that for
Mhm.
worship. I co-worship when a worship leader was there. I would play bass or switch to guitars and be on the worship team, and then I would lead on my guitar when I was leading. And so, but the bass is got a very special.
Yeah,
Uh,
my son plays bass guitar.
I love the bass now, and I have a deep respect for bass players.
I have another question for you.
Yeah.
How does music speak to you?
Um, it depends on the music. So some music gets me like rageful, and and which I need sometimes because I love Metallica and Judas Priest, but then being a Christian, sometimes I don't really listen to too much worship music. I try to keep that between me and the Lord. But if I have to know, I'm not. It doesn't mean I don't. I have to be aware of what's out there and what's popular, obviously. But
Mhm.
but I don't know. Music's been the only thing that's like leveled me off and gives me some peace. And I listen to all, like I said, Billie Holiday to
Yeah.
Judas Priest and the B-52s. So and
Mhm.
they all make me happy.
Mhm.
You know.
Does it see I well here's a little secret about me. Music and poetry are what moves me.
Yeah.
And I can have a song that somebody doesn't not even remotely familiar to, but it will speak to me in such a way that will stop me in my tracks and just melt me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's not a lot of that today. It's sad that music has changed so much today. There's a few really good artists out there, but then again, it's a whole different generation. It's not our generation, really, I guess.
Do you think technology has anything to do with that?
Sure. I mean, technology is everything. It's made a lot of different. Look at TikTok. You know how I'm on. There's so many people that just got famous on TikTok with their music, and yeah, it's definitely changed the industry. It sure changed country. I mean, country's changed. Some people really like today's country. I'm just not a big fan of, you know, at all. Really. I mean, that's a sad thing to say, but you know,
Mm,
it's.
I just had a bug get stuck to my lip gloss.
Oh.
Okay,
Do you
moving
do you have
on.
spiders there? You don't have snakes, you said, but do you have spiders?
Yes, but not like, anything that'll make you, scream and run like a little girl.
That's what I always do. If you want to get me to scream and run like a little girl, throw a spider in my dress. I actually have a CO2 pellet pistol right in my room, not loaded, just with air because we have a lot
Yep.
of we have wolf spiders.
Oh,
And when they come, and they're quick, so I blast them with the air.
We have a problem up here with we call them chiselers, but what they are is they're a ground squirrel, and they all of our utilities are buried underground, and well, they and so they're usually target practice for people. Yeah, but they're very destructive. They will just, they'll get in and hide out in your engine and just, tear it apart.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just terrible. Yeah.
It's terrible.
So how now you are 63?
3. Yeah.
How has social media worked into your lifestyle, or has it?
Oh yeah. I think like with my TikTok channel, I post. It's kind of like a mental release for my stupid videos. You've seen them. Some of them make no sense at all, only to me. It's kind of like a mental release, and I met a lot of great people on Facebook and that, and YouTube, and like my YouTube channel, which we haven't talked about. Like I went to, I was just starting all that with COVID and was going to start doing my cooking and that. Then I got injured, from a little thing here that we discussed earlier, and I have polymyalgia rheumatica, which affects my shoulders and my arm. I kind of paralyzes. I'm like I have to take prednisone. I forgot to take it yesterday. I had a real busy day, and when I woke up this morning, I could hardly move. It felt like my hand was broken, and my
Yeah.
legs. And it's terrible to be that this drug is like the only thing, and it's the only thing that can treat this disease that I ended up getting. And so that I'm changing
What
the subject.
kind of disease is it like an autoimmune disease? Like
It's an
what I have?
autoimmune disease, yeah, and I have swollen. I have microcytic anemia. I have swollen. All my joints are swollen and inflamed, and it's
Oh,
just it's kind of destroyed. It's ruined my life. Actually, it really. I mean, I don't want to really claim that, but it's really, really negatively
I
affected.
understand.
It's I really can't cook anymore. I can hardly use my left hand at all. And it's amazing when I can play guitar, that I've actually had to reteach myself how to play, because
Really?
it's like atrophy. This whole my I can't I have no feeling here at all,
Yeah.
except for, well, sometimes I have pain
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
both of my shoulders, and the PMR really affects your shoulders and neck. And with me breaking my shoulders, and I was in another worse car accident, that one that you've seen, where I actually somersaulted and hit trees and flipped over upside down, was
Oh,
trapped in a field next to a pond, and thankfully there was no houses around, but somebody had heard it because no one would have found me, and I was like, that Lord was looking out me then too, because another few inches and I would have been in the pond and drowned because the engine came through, the motor came through and was on my legs. At
my
least they built good.
gosh.
They built good cars back then, in the 80s.
Oh my gosh, you have been through tragedy after tragedy. So
I
what
was in
is
a
going
house.
on in your life right now?
I was in a house explosion once where my friends had just bought the house, and in their fireplace there was a heat exchanger. It was like a boiler system, and they had never the previous owners had never used it, so they had a fire. We were sitting there watching a movie and it exploded, and it blew me 23 feet into the kitchen, and it
Um,
destroyed the other side of the house. The whole roof joists came off, and every window blew out of the house and didn't even break. They couldn't believe that no one was killed, and they couldn't believe that I took the whole brunt of the explosion with big chunks of cast iron, and the only thing that saved me was my leather jacket. That was one thing. It could have been 85 degrees, and I had my leather jacket on.
you know, that is absolute. So you have kissed death so many times. You really have.
uh, yeah,
gosh. So how do you think you should be alive today?
Sure, I should. I'm a real good guy.
I love that answer. Most people would have said no.
Well, no, I should be. God has a purpose for me. So, it doesn't matter if I'm 63. Like I told you, like my best friend now is an 80-year-old. The guitar player at the church that wants me, he's so excited. He's 81. I was like, how can I use? I'm too old. I'm 63. I can't play. And you got an 81-year up there playing a Les Paul, jamming on leads.
I
So
love it.
it's like it doesn't matter your age. God must have a plan for me. And that's how I try to keep. That's why I'm not insane. I have R Wing tattooed on my arm, and R Wing is the psychiatric ward in Rochester. you know, and
You should have Eva on there.
uh, I want to get this one covered. No.
Hey, Armis, tell me about your shirt,
Oh, it's just
Beavis and
being.
Butthead.
Well, I love bees. I saw this right around, was it Labor Day or something? It was at Walmart. I had to walk through. It's like Beavis and Butthead. I gotta have it. They were. That was a great show to me. I just enjoyed. I love Beavis. He was saying fire, fire. you know? and So, and I'm glad I haven't got to see the new one. I was at the doctor's office last week, and I had this on, and an older couple. They looked a little bit older than me, and they were all excited. The shirt just like, did you see the new episode? Beavis and Butthead just came on last night, and I'm like, it was so great to see someone older than me that liked Beavis and Butthead.
Okay, okay. Which one do you um uh 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 align with more, Beavis or Butthead?
More Beavis, he's
Okay. Is that
more.
because you don't want to be a butthead?
No, I love Butthead. Butthead's his own personality. I mean, Butthead is perfect. I mean, but I'm just more of a fidgety. Beavis is fidgety, and I've like gotten fidgety. You know,
Yeah,
you can see me. I'm moving around.
me
I
too.
jump. I jump in all different directions, and
Me
my
too.
mind's constantly working, working, and working. I'm a insomniac. I usually go on like a 1.5 to 2 hours of sleep a night. So
Yeah.
my mind just don't shut off.
Tell me why you have a stage name right now.
Well, like I said, when COVID started, I ended up leaving my job, and thank the Lord, I was able to take my retirement at 62 finally. My Social Security, because I was on unemployment, which was wow, unemployment was crazy in New York. I was making way more money than when I was working as a chef, and it was like crazy. I'm waiting for him to want it all back, But I was excited. I got my downstairs. I have a full drum set. I have a 8-channel PA system, 800-watt speakers, and like I have everything for a band downstairs. So I was excited. We're gonna start a band. I met a friend of mine who was a drummer, and it's like, wow, I can finally do this now. After all, I can retire and put time into my music, and do some chefing videos. And then I
Hmm.
got ended up getting PMR and a bunch of other stuff, and it kind of sidelined me. But like you said, I'm getting better.
Yeah.
I changed the little
Good.
bio just before last week when I knew, because I left it like the rock and roll chef, and it's like, well, where's his rock and roll chef stuff? And that's why nothing's really been done. I've had a YouTube channel since 2008, and I basically stored like my music band videos and stuff up there, but I'd share between other musicians, and I took them all down. There's one video on my YouTube channel of me actually singing with my wife playing, and we were trying this terrible drummer, this kid. He's a terrible drummer. God, terrible. Also, he had a double bass, and he was no timing. Just oh my god, the crazy video. But I don't know why I went there. See, my mind. I think it's the brain. When I had the brain injury, that kind of makes me like go from one subject to the other, and
That's okay.
and I'm
That's okay.
crazy. So
And you know what? I'm learning a lot about you. We're all learning a lot about you.
so
So, Armist, um, how did you find my channel?
that's a good. It's funny how who was I talking to? Yeah, originally, how this all started
No.
when I started. Well, how I found like I follow all the West Coast streamers, all of them. All of
Mhm.
yeah, I follow all their inner fighting and stuff. You know, it's so funny because the East Coast people they're a different breed. They're like, yeah, put your channel and all, and somehow you see, but I get it and I understand it's a whole different. But I love them all, and it's great for me because it doesn't matter if they want. It's great entertainment for me. But I found you well, originally when I was on, I was following Brandon Kopic. He's a storm chaser, and we
Mm.
became friends. He was the only other person other than Portland Andy that I donated money to.
Oh,
When
I
they
love
came to
Portland Andy.
Buffalo, a
Shout out
couple.
to Portland Andy.
Shout out to Portland Andy.
Big time.
Anyways, um, um, when they came to Buffalo during the Christmas storm when 53 people were killed, and you know, I don't know if you heard, it was a couple of years ago, and that's how I started following them. And they were such great guys. Him and Vince were helping. They were pulling the state troopers out of the snow, and all the people were giving them flack. Who are you guys think you are with your lights on? You're not. But some of them have EMT training, and so I started following them. Somebody asked me, I don't know, it was one of the West Coast streamers. It was AXN. Um, you know, he asked me, how did you find me? And I was like, somehow the algorithm on YouTube, do I like to watch live stuff like that? And it somehow switched me to, and I found AXN was, I think, the first. Actually, it was the guy PM. He's hardly on. He works with Scott, and I'm like, yeah, if it's okay.
PMTV. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
who he is.
he was the first one because he was kind of following the the riots,
Hmm.
and so I started. And somehow the algorithm led me to them, which led me to you.
Got it.
That which led me to Smoke and Scan and everything. So,
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
somehow the algorithm took me from storm chasing. That's why AXN's like, how is storm chasing bring us? Like, I don't know, maybe because it's live, and that's all I watch now is like live YouTube. I watch New York or the East Coast during the day because there's nobody. There was the one guy that used to do it at night in New York, but there's nobody really on the East Coast. There's one guy once in a while from Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
and I'd like to do it around here, but like kids knocking over the mailbox is not big news, because I live way out in the country.
No, I live way out in the
Well,
country.
yeah, you do live way out in the country, but for New York, I live. People
Yeah.
think of New York, and I live like way out in the country of
Yeah.
compared to the city.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, my hometown of Rochester has turned into just a horrible gunslinging. It's just crime, and
Really?
11 people were shot and killed at a park that I hung around with as a youth. Just the other night at just a party, and it's all on YouTube and well on and X. But yeah, it's just people getting shot every day. There's people getting shot in Rochester. It's just I don't know. The world's changed a lot, not for the better in some parts, but
Yeah.
but then there's people like you and that bring the good news and some enjoyment and some
Thank you.
yes, thank you. That's how I found you. And I a lot of
Thanks.
times if you see me on there liking your stuff, I watch. I don't know if I can turn my camera. See, I watch everything on my big TV. So so I'm usually like I don't always have the phone, so I got my surround sound and I watch everything on the big TV. That's what I do at night. I sit there and like I'm in the car with everybody, and you
Me
know.
too. Yeah, I love it. I love it. But lately, I've just been kind of, just I need a break.
Yeah, yeah, yep. I know. That's why I was surprised. I saw you like a couple last week. I think on Smoking Scam for the first time, and that's when
Yeah.
we said
Yeah.
hi. But I know everyone's. You got your own life. You have to.
Hey, here's LAOC.
All
Hey,
right,
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Shout out to Jeremy to LAOC. We love a little bit of Jeremy over here.
I do. I watch Jeremy too faithfully.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, yeah, he's a lot of fun to watch. I like it. Jeremy, what I love about your channel is I like going to the action, but you know what? I love the tours that you do and the people watching. It's
I
the
want to
best.
see more breakdancing.
More
More
breakdancing.
breakdancing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love especially seeing just the people out at night that are just wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
caught him the other night with doing on his bike and on his other channel. Jeremy, was it Jeremy? What's what's Jeremy's last name? Jeremy.
It starts with a B. I forgot.
Well, his
But
other channel
anyway,
is
he says more breakdancing coming.
Jeremy Reed,
Jeremy Reed,
1980. All right,
1980.
Jeremy. See, I follow you.
That's right. Jeremy Reed, 1980.
Yep,
Please
I
sub
was watching
to
him
that.
with I can't think of the other guy. The guy who rides the e-bikes, John. I don't know if you ever watch him. Jeremy was on his channel. They ran into each other, and sometimes they stream together riding the
Okay.
e-bikes. And
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, so I like I follow all the West Coast, even everyone who fights. It doesn't matter if everyone doesn't get along. To me, I just love watching them all.
Well,
I get upset.
Jeremy is going to be. Oh, he says John Hicks.
John Hicks. John Hicks is
Yeah,
awesome.
he's going to be on my channel sometime this month. We were about a month ago. He and I were talking, and he said probably sometime in August. So
Awesome.
Jeremy will be back on.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we'll find out what's going on with him too.
Good
So
stuff.
Armist, what would you like to say to everybody? Would you have anything to say to anybody?
I no, I don't
What
know.
what is a little bit of wisdom that you could leave everybody with?
You're asking someone who's been married 4 times. I don't have it. Don't get married. No, just kidding. No, no, no. You lose a lot of
Oh,
guitars. That's why. That's one thing I learned about being married 4 times. You got to put your guitars at other people's houses. No, I've only
yep,
got 14 here.
yep, yep.
No, I'm just kidding. Love life. Do get married. That's wrong. Do get married. No, I've always married. I've been married 4 times, and I always want to do the right thing. I want if I'm
Yeah,
with somebody, I want to be married, and it's just maybe my fiance who was killed in the car accident. Maybe she was the one. I don't know. I don't
hmm,
know.
yeah.
But
Well, that's okay. But you know what? For everything that you've been through, you sure seem like a happy guy,
yeah,
happy bloke.
I try to be. I'm generally happy. What are
Are
you gonna
you
do? I mean, you can't. I am. I mean, you can't.
good?
I mean, what's it? I've been down and depressed before, and that doesn't get you anywhere. So,
Hmm.
find a little joy in life, and so I
Yeah,
said maybe now. I've never seen the ocean. You know that? I've been to Florida. I flew to Florida on September 10th, and you know what happened the next day was nine
yeah,
11, and I was right in Ocala, which A Day to Remember. It's one of my favorite bands. Are from Ocala, and I was so 9/11 happens, then a tropical storm hits. So we're sitting smack dab in Ocala with no power for 3 days. I searched around my in-laws' home and found a transistor AM radio headset so I could listen to what was going on in the news. I'll tell you, trying to get home from there was not fun. I mean, we were going to rent a car and they wanted $2,300 up front to rent a car to drive it back to New York. I was like, it was
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I think I'll stay put.
Yeah, I never got to see the ocean. I saw it from 30,000 feet. I had tickets to Universal Studios, and we had tickets to NASA. And it's like, well, someday I'll get to see the ocean.
Yeah. So, what do you do for entertainment now?
Uh,
Matthew Walter is asking, what do you do for entertainment now?
well, I try to keep myself. This is what I do. I have this. See that? It's called an Orba.
Okay.
It's a little mini machine that it has 4 different kind of you can record, and my grandkids are a lot better at it than me. But it has It's drums and all kinds of.
Okay.
When my arms flare up and I can't play, I bought that. I had bought that, so I need to play some kind of instrument. I like to play, and I ended up buying this. This is like my favorite guitar in the whole world. It weighs about a pound.
Why?
Be, why? Why does it weigh a pound, or why is it
No,
my
why
favorite?
is it your favorite?
Because with my shoulder problems and arms, it's so easy to play. And I had it set up. It's got a beautiful neck. That's all you need. It's got a humbucking pickup and a neck. That's all you need.
Do you have acoustic guitar?
Well, yeah, I just showed this acoustic guitar is the one that was been with me for the ministry. It's all beat up. There's holes in it, and I have a real nice ovation downstairs.
I
You know, I
you
usually when I've done worship, I usually use an acoustic guitar. So once when I was in the band with my wife, who was the speed demon, I don't want to call her a demon, but anyways, we played electric, all electric. Then once in a while, we'd break out into acoustic stuff. But I
Mhm.
also switched to bass then because we had two other, too many guitar players. You need a bass, and I
So
play. I have a Quest 2. I do that too. I put on my Quest 2 3D headset, and that's
so
what I
when
do.
you just let me ask you, say you were sitting out on my porch and you had a guitar with and you just picked it up and start strumming it. What would you play? Is there
Not.
something you could kind of play for us right now?
I don't see when my arm is so messed up. I don't even know if this is in tune. I don't. Maybe. Ooh. I don't have the capo on it. If I try to belt out and try to sing like,
It's beautiful.
but
Beautiful. Thank you. Beautiful.
I was almost going to do it without the capo. I'd start singing like Alfalfa because it's hard to sing the Cranberries being a man, but I can do it. And she sings. Dolores plays with the capo. Well, she doesn't. Well, she does play, but they use the capo on the first fret, and I didn't have my capo up here. Otherwise, I would have got into starting to sing it.
Um Sean says smelly cat.
Smelly Cat is awesome. I love Smelly Cat.
Smelly cat.
Smelly Cat.
Smelly cat. So is that your so if you were sitting on my porch, somewhere on my porch, would you pick up your guitar and just start playing?
Yeah, I do often. I'll just pick it up, and there's a song I've been working on lately, and like I told you, I have to like reteach myself how to do certain chords because my hand, well, it has atrophy, so it doesn't kind of
Mhm.
work. But yeah, I've been getting more in tune with the acoustic guitar lately,
Mhm.
and it's a beautiful thing. I would just sit there and just strum around and try to sing some Billie Holiday. And like I said, I love old jazz music and Frank Sinatra.
Mhm.
The other day I was just practicing "Summer Wind" by Frank Sinatra. It kind
Yep.
of matches like I'm going through. Hopefully not another divorce. I have hope. So I don't want to start tearing up now on live TV. But
Oh, you know what? I'm a sympathetic crier.
you know,
So, you know, I mean, if
no.
somebody starts, bubbling up, I bubble up right with them.
I bought a harmonica recently. My brother, God rest his soul, we never talked. My brother ended up committing suicide. My older brother a few years back, and he could.
Sorry.
We would jam, and he could play the harmonica like no business. It was awesome, and I could never. Just how he'd pick it up and just make stupid sounds. Like, how the heck are you doing that? So I've been trying to teach myself a little bit of harmonica now,
You
just for.
know, Shiloh Ann, she's in the chat right now, and she sat down with me at the other 2 weeks ago, and we had a talk about mental health.
Yeah, I missed that. I saw it. I missed it
Yep.
live. I watched some of it. Yep,
Oh, she'll be back. She'll be back. But she's a singer. And her husband used to be an audio engineer. And they have actually a whole control room in their home.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so um I'm sure that hey Shiloh, when you can, do you just sit down and just start singing? Because her voice is so beautiful. Just beautiful. Yeah. You know what? This is funny. I was the other day, I was washing my windows and decided I am going to um uh do my karaoke. And so my dog started howling with me and it was so funny. And whenever I pick up my karaoke, they howl with me and it's a big old party. Uh, oh, Armist, you've been a joy. You're really a joy.
So were you, Calamity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Would
you.
you
I
ever
like
come
I
back?
said, I was like, I'm a nobody. Like I said, it's like the Frank Zappa song when we first started. You're probably wondering why I'm here, and so am I. But
No, you're
I would love
somebody
to
to
come.
all of us.
There's a lot more stories I could tell you. Like I said, we
Mm-hmm.
didn't get into some because I jump all over the place, and it's just my
Mm-hmm.
mind doesn't shut off, and I like, oh, I think
Yeah.
part of my
Yeah.
crazy life. I look at it. You see, like my crazy. You see my crazy doll up there.
What's that?
That's my little. I tell my grandkids that's my little sister. And this is just a tour of my room. There's
Little
there's my
sister.
Pennywise, Buckethead the clown. You know, this is like Armist Bates place. I have Frankenstein over there, and Ozzy.
Yeah.
I have Black Sabbath, Ked Pros over there.
I love it. Armist, you are a very colorful individual in a great way. In a great way. I mean, your story is it's pretty phenomenal, you
Thanks.
know? And I love that how that you can admit your wrongs, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's great. That's something that I'd like to keep doing is to have members of the chat sit down with me and let's get to know each other.
That's a good idea. People need that today.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah. So instead of just sitting down reading a bunch of words,
Yeah. Yeah.
we can kind of get to know the individual behind those words.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe I'm from a generation that used words, you know?
Well, I think times have changed, like I said. But there's always good. There's always hope.
Mhm.
I'm hopeful. I'm not going to stay here and be sick for I'm just not. I'm not.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is like maybe my chance to tour. Maybe I'll go out west. So my plan was I was going to jump in my car, drive out to California, hand someone my keys, and it's $89 to fly one way to Hawaii. And I was just going to go and stay there. Like, I'm afraid to fly back. You got to keep me here. Just take my social security and my pension. And, one of my buddies from the Bowery Boys, he's retired there. He lives on the beach. I'll just go knock on his door.
Mhm. You're such a free spirit. I love it.
Thank
I
you.
love it. Yeah. Yeah. Armist, I thank you for your time so much.
You're welcome, Calamity. Thanks for having me.
Sure, and thank you for your friendship.
Anytime, man. You're
I
you're a great.
appreciate that.
You're a wonderful woman, man. Man,
Well,
man.
thank you. I have a lot of faults and I make a lot of bad decisions, but
Don't we
who
all? I
doesn't?
mean, don't we all?
We're human.
We are human.
Yeah. So Armis, you keep rocking.
I will.
Yeah, and we'll be talking. You keep
Definitely.
rocking and we'll be talking.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I never told you my secret of my chef's secrets too. We got to do that,
Well, you want to spill? You want to spill? Give us a little
It's
teaser.
put a little boogie in it. It could be terrifying hearing that from a chef. No, I'm just kidding. I'm the rock and roll chef. You got to put a little boogie in it. No.
Got to put a little boogie in it.
I used to make soups like that. I'd come up with the weird, like I used to make paninis, and I would just say liverwurst and fluffernutter. That would be the panini of the day, and I'd write
That's
that
right.
on the menu too.
I bet they loved it.
And I actually said, "What's your secret?" Well, I put a little boogie in it. And they don't know how to take it.
I think it's precious.
And I never would, by the way.
Of course not.
No, of
Of
course
course not. But you are a rock and roll chef.
I am.
Rock on.
Fire, fire.
And for those who are listening, if you would you go and uh put Calamity on an extra device and just let it run? I'd appreciate that because I'm up on my long weekend and
Awesome.
I could use the watch hours. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for everything. Rock on.
Rock on.
Yeah.
Rock
We'll
on.
be seeing you.
Yes, we will.
Okay, my friend. Goodbye,
Bye.
goodbye, fraud.
Bye.